Imagine this for a second. You've just engineered literally one of the most miraculous turnarounds in college football history. I mean, you put the team on your back and carried Vanderbilt to a program record 10 wins. You personally accounted for nearly 3/4 of your team's total offense. You were named the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, and you finished second in the voting for the absolute most prestigious award in the sport. You're a certified, undisputed national star. And then, less than 3 months after signing your very first professional contract, you're unemployed. No training camp, no preseason games, just a sudden, completely unceremonious cut. Welcome to This Explainer, where we are going to look at the incredibly harsh realities of professional football roster construction.
Okay, let's dive into this because the story of Diego Pavia is a truly fascinating case study. It shows us just how vastly different the evaluations are between the college game and the pros. I mean, how exactly does a player with this much momentum, this much proven playmaking ability against the absolute best defenses the SEC has to offer, lose his spot on an NFL roster before training camp even officially begins? It's a question that's honestly baffled a lot of fans this week. But, when we look closely at the data and the roster mechanics of the Baltimore Ravens, it actually starts to make ruthless logical sense.
The contrast between Pavia's collegiate resume and his NFL reality is just staggering. It's like two completely different worlds. On one hand, you have his resume from this past 2025 season. He is the Heisman runner-up, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, and the undisputed architect of a 10-win season at Vanderbilt where he was out there beating top-tier ranked opponents. But on the other hand, consider his immediate NFL reality. He went completely undrafted in the 2026 NFL Draft, his height is officially listed at just 5 feet 10 inches, and then he gets waived by the Ravens in July, completely missing out on a chance to even put on the pads in August. It's a massive, glaring disconnect between collegiate production and professional projection.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how highly regarded his final college season actually was. Securing 1,435 points and 189 first-place votes, Pavia finished only behind Indiana's Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback who literally led his team to a national championship. Pavia beat out elite players from powerhouse programs like Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Georgia to claim that second spot. He wasn't just good, he was the very first Heisman finalist in Vanderbilt's entire history.
And the on-field production? It backs up that voting perfectly. 39. That is the number of total touchdowns Diego Pavia generated in his final 12 games. To put that into perspective, he threw for nearly 3,200 yards, ran for over 800 more, and led the entire SEC with a 70.6% completion rate. When teams tried to blitz him, he threw 17 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. I want to make this absolutely crucial point exceptionally clear, right up front. His on-field talent, his competitive drive, and his sheer playmaking ability were never the issue here. He absolutely put the numbers on tape. So what gives? Why the intense hesitation from NFL front offices? Well, Pavia himself perfectly summarized the bias he's faced his entire career. He noted that evaluators focus so heavily on height, weight, and 40-yard dash times. As he put it, "I like to go off film. I move well. I feel like I throw the ball well. I just don't have God-given height and weight." And honestly, he hit the nail on the head. Going all the way back to high school, he had absolutely zero major Division I offers. He was forced to start at a military junior college precisely because of this physical profile.
For NFL scouts, a 5'10" quarterback presents some very specific, measurable concerns. It's not just about seeing over a massive offensive line, it's about the actual passing trajectory required to get the ball over professional edge rushers and complex defensive line schemes without it getting constantly batted down. But, impartially speaking, we also have to note that scouts flagged a few off-field attitude concerns. Following his Heisman loss to Mendoza, Pavia posted an explicit, frustrated message on social media, directed at the voters, and was later seen making an obscene gesture toward an insulting sign at a nightclub. Now, he did promptly and publicly apologize, expressing his respect for the voters and calling Mendoza a deserving winner. But in the hyper-scrutinized pressure cooker evaluation process of an undrafted rookie, front offices take note of absolutely every single detail.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how all of those evaluations ultimately collided with the harsh reality of the Baltimore Ravens quarterback room. This is the depth chart Pavia was trying to climb. At the top, obviously you have Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP and the absolute foundation of the franchise. Right behind him is Huntley, an incredibly experienced backup who knows this system perfectly.
So realistically, Pavia was competing for the third or maybe a developmental fourth spot. But during spring minicamps, veteran Skylar Thompson showed immense consistency and command of the offense in 7-on-7 drills. On top of that, undrafted rookie Joe Fagnano out of Connecticut seriously impressed the coaching staff with his arm strength and pocket presence. Pavia just quickly found himself as the odd man out in that developmental hierarchy.
And this leads us to the purely strategic side of NFL management, the brutal roster math. Head coach Jesse Minter and general manager Eric DaCosta had to step back and evaluate the entire team's needs, not just the quarterback room. Entering a grueling 17-game season with legit Super Bowl aspirations, the Ravens organization simply decided that carrying multiple developmental quarterbacks through summer workouts was a luxury they couldn't afford. They needed to pivot their resources to prioritize interior offensive line stability.
And that pivot came with a very specific price tag, $4.5 million. The Ravens identified veteran center Ethan Pocic as a totally necessary addition to reinforce their offensive line right before training camp. They quickly worked out a one-year agreement reportedly worth up to $4.5 million, but here's the catch with the NFL. You can't just add a player and a contract in a vacuum. Every single addition requires an equal subtraction to balance both the books and the locker room. So the crucial point here is the number 90. The NFL strictly mandates a maximum 90-man roster limit during the preseason. It is a literal zero-sum game. To finalize the paperwork for Ethan Pocic and officially bring him into the building, the Ravens needed to clear exactly one roster spot and a little bit of salary cap flexibility. With the quarterback room already feeling settled with Jackson, Huntley, Thompson, and Fagnano, Diego Pavia became the corresponding roster casualty. His release had way less to do with a sudden drop in talent and everything to do with the harsh mathematics of NFL roster management.
It is truly wild how quickly fortunes can shift in this business. Just look at this timeline. In late April, despite being a Heisman finalist, he falls completely out of the draft. Just 72 hours later, on April 28th, he signs a 3-year, $3.1 million undrafted free agent deal with Baltimore. It seems like he's secured his shot, right? But then, by July 23rd, just days before the team officially reports for training camp, he's waived. It's a chaotic 3-month roller coaster that perfectly highlights the absolute lack of job security for undrafted rookies.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our next question. What is next for Diego Pavia? Well, he actually has some very realistic professional options on the table right now. First up, the NFL waiver wire. All 31 other teams had a chance to claim his current contract. Even if he clears waivers, he becomes an unrestricted free agent, which allows him to latch onto a practice squad. Teams seeking mobile, off-script backups, like perhaps the Denver Broncos, are definitely going to be monitoring him. But beyond the NFL, alternative leagues are watching this very closely. The UFL has already publicly acknowledged his availability on social media. And if we look up north, the CFL's Winnipeg Blue Bombers actually placed Patilia on their exclusive negotiation list way back in June of 2024. So if he wants to head to Canada, Winnipeg holds his rights and has reportedly already had preliminary conversations with his reps.
Diego Pavia has spent his entire athletic life proving people wrong. From a military junior college all the way to the Heisman Trophy podium, his career has been built on overcoming the exact same doubts about his size and profile that led to this recent waiver wire cut. He's been knocked down again for sure, but the tape doesn't lie, and his playmaking ability is undeniably elite. So will college football's ultimate underdog find his next stage? Only time will tell. But if history is any indication, you definitely shouldn't bet against him.